of April 8th, 2025. If you could please stand for a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance with Mrs. Pickett.
As we pause for a moment of silence, I encourage us to reflect on how we can spread kindness. I think the world could use some. Now for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, fire evacuation announcement. In the unlikely event of a fire or an emergency, you can go out the back doors of the chambers to the parking lot, or out the side doors here, downstairs, and out to the parking lot. And a new and improved thing is you don't have to come in through the back doors of the chambers anymore. After 5 o'clock, you can come in the back downstairs, basement stairs, and come up like before, because they'll have the doors unlocked after 5. Roll call, please, Kathy.
Mrs. Pickett?
Here.
Mr. Ryder?
Here.
Mrs. Acree?
Here.
Dr. Kalnan?
Here.
Mrs. Cushman?
Here.
Mr. Gauss?
Here.
Mr. Kober?
Here.
Mrs. LeBlanc? Chairwoman Riley?
Here. All right. Board guests. Mrs. Middleton with Next Generation Accountability. Yeah. Or shall I say the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction.
Also me.
I got to give you the right title.
Okay. This is a presentation that I was going to present a few months ago, so thank you for letting me do it now. I'm going to go over the trend scores for the Accountability Index, and I will remind you of what each indicator means as we go through. And then I'm not going to read you all the data from the slide because you'll be watching it as I'm talking about it. So the way this PowerPoint is set up is that the left side of the screen are the state's numbers and the right side are Enfield's numbers. You'll see that the 2 testing years before COVID are on there, 17-18 and 18-19. There is no 19-20 because COVID. There's no 2021. There was testing, but it was the hybrid year. Kids were able to take it virtually. It was very experimental. So students have scores, but there wasn't a data analysis and release done in that year because the data was a little, they didn't know if it was accurate, but a student had a score for a baseline for growth, which will be important when we get to indicator 2. And the Accountability Index, the state takes all of the scores, they do their formula, things are weighted differently, and this is, they get one, each district gets one final score, and the accountability target is 85%. So this is where we are at this point. We have gone up almost to our highest pre-COVID last year. So we are on the rise. The first indicator, I broke this down into three different slides. I'm going to show you an ELA slide, a math slide, and a science slide. It gets very confusing when all those lines are at the same place. So you'll notice that one color is, the blue is our all students, and the orange is high needs. This scores represent, the next 3 slides represent all Smarter Balanced and SAT. So on the English is Smarter Balanced and SAT. Science is also on there as well. Target for all of these is 75%. And you'll see, if you look on these slides, you can see that we took a dip, obviously, after COVID. State took the same dip. And then for the 3 years, we went steadily up for each. We do have an achievement gap between our all students and our high needs. The state has a higher one, but we are working to obviously close that gap. Oops. Okay, here's the math. The light gray is a little hard to see, but that's all students, and then the darker gray or the black is the high needs. We actually are doing pretty well with our high needs students. We're above the state for math with that, which is nice. And we are, like I said, we are moving up for those 3. And science has been something that we've done pretty well here in Enfield. We started higher. It doesn't go back to 17, 18, because you have to remember when the next generation science standards came out, the assessment came out, so that was in the 18, 19 school year. So we started pretty high. We went down after COVID, like everybody else did, but we have, we've come back. We're getting back up to where we were pre-pandemic. So those are the performance indicators. Another thing about the performance, these are scale scores on a continuum. This is not either met or not met. They take all of the scale scores achieved by students and they come up with these indicators. So this is representative of all students' performance, not just those that have met a target or haven't met a target. So it's more comprehensive of what our students have done. Indicator 2 for these is academic growth. Now, a couple of things about academic growth. We won't be talking about science because what this does is it takes, when every student gets a scale score and they get a growth target. This represents the percentage of growth target that is achieved by students. So it's how much of the growth target that was achieved by all of our students. Science is only measured in 5, 8, and 11. So you can't have a year's growth because you don't measure it every year. This is also only representative of students in grades 4 through 8 because we don't have a 9th grade, 10th grade assessment. So you get your scale score and your target in 3rd grade, you get your growth in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. So one thing I want you to notice here, when I met with the state, that 21-22, and then that drop to 22-23, you'll see the state has it too. It was a pretty universal trend around a lot of Connecticut. We talked about reasons why. Although we didn't have a performance data set on this for 2021, students had a score, so they had a growth target. If you think about hybrid and then coming back to school every day, there were a lot of growth targets that were met that year. And then they were based upon a score and a growth target. It kind of went down that next year for some reason, and now it's going back up. One thing to notice is that our high needs and our all students for ELA, that achievement gap has been lowering, and we are moving back up in the direction. Last year was our highest of each in the data. Math, you have the same trajectory, but you will notice we had closed the gap in 22-23. It's opened it up a little bit, but we did still make some nice progress there. The different last one here, this is the Lost Links test. This is for our multilingual English language learners. And they take the Lost Links test and they take an oral portion and a literacy portion. So what this score does, it measures, again, the growth from one year to another. You see, we shot way up one year, then we're coming back down. When I was talking to the state about this, they saw similar. You can see the state didn't have as much of a shoot, like went as high, but they were really impressed actually with our numbers and want to actually talk to the people doing our ESOL and in charge of our ESOL to find out exactly what we're doing, because the numbers are actually kind of outliers here, that they are, 70%, and I'm considering that low because of where they were. So that's something they wanted to talk to us about. Any questions so far? I don't want to fly through this, but
Ask a quick question?
yeah, go ahead.
So, do you think that the trend went down because we got more students who speak a foreign language at that?
Our numbers have been increasing, so it's something that I've been thinking about. I did ask that. They weren't really sure whether or not that would have made, because again, it is on growth, but you have more students trying to meet growth targets, and if they're all at different levels of entry and different levels of acquisition, then, this also, the Lost Links is K-12. So it depends on where the student is. So where the student is when they come in, and how much, how they're progressing with their acquisition of the English language. So that could be part of it too. And I'm going to stop hitting that. Chronic absenteeism. We've talked about this a lot, so I'm not going to explain chronic absenteeism again. Just to say that we were having a nice trend where we were going down. This one you're supposed to go down.
Okay.
Just letting you know, this is one that we want to go the opposite direction. We did spike after COVID. Everybody did. The state is seeing a resurgence in spiking this year for some reason. We're really not sure why. You know that John Daig and I are part of the LEAP program. We've been in a lot of meetings where we meet monthly with all the other districts, and it really is a problem that people are trying to solve. We're not really sure exactly why this year we're seeing more of an issue. So, but we are working on that, and those are our numbers. We had made some progress. Hopefully, at the end of the year, we will see that we made it again.
You're going to have a Board of Education update on the LEAP program at the next board meeting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, college career readiness. These two colors mean two totally different things. So let's talk about the blue, which is the taking of the courses. This is the percentage of students in grades 11 and 12 that are participating in either 2 AP or dual enrollment concurrent classes or 2 CTE courses in a certain pathway. They count as kiddos that are taking courses. So they look at them over those 2 years. We do very well with that number. You have to remember that our non-tech courses were coming in there. Our EMT was coming in there. So, we had really made progress with getting kids enrolled. Now, the orange number is the students passing exams. And these two almost don't even have anything to do with each other because SAT is considered a college readiness assessment, and all 11th graders take it. So not all 11th graders are in the blue, but all 11th graders are in the orange. The other thing to remember is that in order to count for us in the orange, because this is a percentage of students passing exams, students would have to meet the state benchmark on both the math SAT and the English SAT, which means they have to get a 530 on math and a 480 on English, both to count. They could also get a 3 on an AP exam. They could also earn 3 credits in college of a college course, but all courses have to be a C or above. So those are some of the ways we get the orange number. But it is important to realize that it's just one is all population of 11th graders and one is a certain population of students taking certain courses. So we did, however, make a pretty nice jump last year in the students passing exams, considering. Like we went up, 7 points. And that's actually the highest we've been in these trend numbers. So something to...
Do they ever separate the data, or do we have it separate so we know how many kids are taking the college and EC classes?
We do know how many students are... We would have to go in, take the students that are taking those courses,
Yep.
and look at their AP scores, look at the credit they earned, and look at whether or not their grades were C or above.
Okay.
Could we do it? Yes, but they don't do it for us. They lump it all in.
Okay.
Yep. And some of those kids would fall into 2 different categories.
Right.
Some of those kids are going to get a 530, a 480, and some 4s and AP exams.
Yep.
But they only count once.
Count once.
Sorry, I'm just going to make a comment, and it's more of a comment than a question. My brain is thinking, like, as you're talking about this and telling the story of, like, what things we did and how we got there, I think that is important for us to be cognizant of, and then thinking about some of our strategic planning moving forward, looking at what types of things we're supporting and getting the outcomes we're looking for, and how we have to adjust course and potentially make some adjustments. Because, excuse me, when we did the course of study presentation at the high school, talked about being ready for a dip here because of the cuts. But I think there's in other places too, we have to be very aware of how our budget and how our resources support the work.
Right. Thank you. I would hope the dip would be in blue and not orange, because orange we're working on that. So I'm hoping that the interventions we put in place are moving forward still. On track to high school graduation. So this one is students earning 6 credits at the end of their freshman year. They can't have gotten an F more than one semester in any of the 4 classes in order for them to count. I will point out the 21-22 school year dip. We've talked about this in the past too. That's the year that the state raised the graduation requirements to 25. They also raised the number of 6 credits before that. In the previous years, 18, 19, and before, it was 5 credits. So we have rebounded nicely from that dip, I think. So, but again, this is also students earning 6 credits their freshman year. So scheduling may play a part in that number as well. Our 4-year graduation rate is our all students, and then our 6-year is our high need students. Those are right here. We really, I just want to point out our high need students, our 6-year graduation rate. If you look at those numbers between 2018-19 and where it has been the last 3 years, has really made some improvements. Julie Carroll has done a lot of work with her staff. I know we had some different, initiatives from the state that we looked at, and I think that work is really showing.
Sorry, Michelle, what's
Yeah.
the number on the right, where they cross?
Oh, the number where they cross. 88.1. 86.1. Nope, 88. Thank you. Got glasses on to see far. I have to take them off to see close. It's a game. Post-secondary entrance. This one is basically it's just the percentage of students who enroll in a 2 or 4 year institution of higher learning anytime within the 12 months after they graduate from high school. And this one kind of goes up and down for a variety of reasons. I mean, you have different kids graduating, some, maybe, not as many, are some, maybe more are going into the workforce instead of into a 2 or 4 year institution. So this is a hard one to kind of pin down. I've talked to Dave White about this a lot, and it's difficult to figure out why it goes up and why it goes down, because kids have different needs.
A wonder I just have is thinking
Yep.
back to the slide around our college and career readiness courses and exams, thinking about what classes are kids taking and like how are we showing them the pathway of like, I
Right.
know we're doing a lot of work around our pathways in our program of studies. And not everybody goes to college. And I
Right.
think that is also just
Exactly.
a reality and like an okay conversation to have. But I think it is an interesting kind of conversation of kids, if they're taking the courses,
Right.
how come like the credits and the, like it's not translating afterwards?
Right.
Plus, it could also just be simple economics, like if people
Yeah.
are not making enough money to send their kids to school, or they're not giving good financial aid packets, then that's gonna make that number go down too.
Well, and people, not everyone's destined to go to college, and we
That
have
too.
to support them in some cases even more, because they aren't the ones that are self-motivated to move on, and so
Exactly.
they do need more support.
I'm definitely not a big fan of this particular indicator because it does not show all of the kids that do go on to like right into the workforce and are successful that
And it's
way.
also only 1 year. It's only it's
Right.
1 year. Like, what if you worked for a couple years to save money,
Right,
and
and
then
then
you went somewhere? What if you took one course? Does that even count? So, it's not the greatest of indicators, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
physical fitness. Okay.
That's good.
All right. Let's deal with the orange first. So the orange is the participation rate. We're up above the target of the 90%. We dropped down to 65.5 a couple years ago. That year, the state changed the way that they gather the data. There was a different way to enter the data into a certain system. We had an issue with the data input. By the time it was the error was realized, Mr. Dubey actually contacted the state and was told, yeah, it's too late. So we have the data. We didn't get credit for the data. So that's that one. And then the blue is the fitness rate. Now, this I will say, I have to read this because this one I'm not as familiar with. So that one is, the Connecticut Physical Fitness Assessment is given in grades 4, 6, 8, and 10. In order to get credit on this is the percentage of students that are meeting or exceeding the healthy fitness zone standards in all 4 areas of the test. And I can tell you the 4 areas of the test. The 4 tests are right angle push-up, partial curl, sit and reach, and pacer, which used to be the 1 mile. So they have to meet or exceed standards in the standards in all 4 of those areas. They can't just have 3 out of 4, 2 out of 4. So that's kind of where we are. We are actually, if you look, we are pretty much right on average with where the state is for that one as well. And we've obviously fixed our data entry problem. Arts access, we've always done really, really, really well with this one. We've been above the target since it started. This is the percentage of students in grades 9 through 12 who are taking at least one arts class that year. And it's dance, theater, music, digital arts, visual arts, any of those, anything that counts as an arts class counts towards this. And it is percentage of individual, unique students. So if you take, back when we used to have multiple electives, if you had band and an arts class, you got counted for taking, you were a kid that got counted. So we were at 71 point something percent, which is great. I would anticipate this one probably is going to take a dip just because the schedule changed and they don't have 8 classes anymore. So, but we still, I will say, you saw Mr. Doobie.
Yes.
We still have a very, very, anybody who's been in curriculum, we have a lot of arts offerings, we have a lot of music offerings. So the offerings are there for the students still. So I don't see it going away. And as Mrs. Pickett had said, so the takeaways for this, if you've noticed, many of the indicators have increased consistently over the past 3 years. Obviously, some of the supports and interventions that we had put into place from the return from COVID was helping our students, or is helping our students. Some of the indicators, actually, I pointed out a couple, were higher in 2023, 24 than they were in 17, 18. So they were higher post-COVID than pre-COVID. And obviously, many of the indicators may be impacted by the change in structure for 24, 25. Talked about the high school schedule. We know we have larger class sizes at the elementaries, especially. They test at intermediate. Some of the interventions and supports, have been streamlined a bit. So that's it. So do you have any questions for me? Yes, Ms. Dr. Callan.
Michelle, looking at that arts slide again, I mean, that wasn't really incredible. And it looked like that was due to more than just chance alone. And it was so consistent year after year. Do you have any ideas why that happened? Is it because we offer more in the way of courses? Or?
I think we have a robust variety of opportunities in the arts for students. And I also think that our arts and like the visual arts and the music, they put offerings out there that are going to appeal to a variety of students, not just one certain type of student. Like, for example, we even have AP Art History, which you don't have to be an artist at all to take that course. So we have portfolio art for those kiddos that are going to probably go on to be an artist or go to art school. But we also have art classes where, you don't have to be the greatest artist in the world. We also, if you heard Mr. Doobie, we've got some of those beginning classes for music there as well. So we do have a wide variety. I think that's personally what it is. I also think our teachers are very good at what they do, and I think that they engage the students, and I think they promote their classes, and I think the students enjoy them, and I think word gets out.
Yeah. Great.
Anybody else? I have a question.
Okay.
So the data for 24, 25 school year, when does that get submitted or taken from us? And then do we have an early look? And then when does that officially come out?
Okay, so I had to do the math. I'm like, what year are we in? So yes, TCS gathers all that data over the summer. So it closes at the end of the summer. That's where the state pulls everything from. They then do all this analysis. They put this together. It usually comes out sometime in the fall. I got a sneak peek this year of a couple of different indicators. And then they went, I think there was 2 or 3 that I have to go back and double check and make sure that they let you know if there's a wide range. If there's a huge discrepancy, they want you to go back and look at your data, make sure it makes sense. And then it usually comes out a few weeks after that. I want to say November is when it kind of goes public. I'm not sure if anybody has a better understanding of that. I remember looking at it in the fall.
Okay.
like the preliminary stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we'll get an announcement to tell us that we can go into EdSite
Yeah.
to go ahead, EdSite Secure to go ahead and look at it. But it's been embargoed at that
Right.
point, so we're not allowed to
Right, not to
publicly
share.
share. And then they will do this big announcement because the papers have to do it first
And they do the whole state at the same
stuff,
time.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we'll be able to give it. So, I mean, typically, I would see this type of presentation we can usually give to the board around November, December.
And when it's
Just unfortunately for Michelle, we kept having to.
Yeah. Because
moving. And I will say that when we look at it ourselves in EdSite Secure, we don't see a comparison to the state. So we know where we are compared to last year, but we don't know, like if we have a dip in something, we don't know if the state if it's a trend across the state or if it's just us. So when they lift the embargo and release everything publicly, that's the first time we can see it for the state too.
I gotcha.
So
Thank you. Ms. Acree?
Michelle, I hate to do this to you. Could you reiterate why there was always a dip in the 22-23 year? I think I have it right. You know how it
for the academic growth, yes. So because the 22-23 performance, which is the student's score that year on the assessment, went up from 21-22 to 22-23. The scores went up. The growth went down because the growth in 21-22 was measured based off how they did in 2021, which was not publicly reported. It was that year that not everybody did well. So their growth achievement was higher than the target because they didn't have as far to go. Then they got a target based off of that, their score there, and a lot of the. It was a trend across. They had told me in a meeting with Mr. Macchio actually, and I started looking for myself. And they were right. They told me to look at districts around, and everybody had, whether their data was high, like whether they were in the 70s or 80s, they still dipped down those and went back up. Some never recovered. Some didn't go back up. Some kept going down. We went down and then started going back up.
Yeah.
So, but it was a pretty common occurrence. But I think that it was the data. They probably shouldn't have done the growth that year off of data that wasn't accurate. So,
Okay.
oh, I got it correct. Thank you.
You did. So they basically, they set a mark for everybody to reach
Yeah.
coming out of COVID.
Okay.
That was a guess. We were coming out of COVID. Nobody really knew what was going to occur. They said it. Everybody exceeded it. Everybody looked wonderful.
Yeah.
And now you have this new benchmark that you're basing the following year off of. And then they set their growth target and less people could reach it because now it's like you had an inflated and now you're basing it off of an inflated.
Right.
Mr. Colbert?
So I have a general question, I guess. So with the indicators, obviously the goal is whatever the state standard
Yes.
is to meet or exceed that. And, there's a few we're doing well and a few we aren't. So the ones that we're kind of struggling to achieve or get on par with the state, do we, like, I guess at the administration level, do we set our own, like, benchmarks for, like, this year we're trying to see, like, this growth and that growth?
Yes.
Like, if we're falling short by, like, 3% and we know that's not realistic, are we, like, first year we're planning to get 1%? I mean, I don't know if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yes,
Just-
we do. I meet with the directors. We talk about where we are and where we should be going. And always our biggest conversation, to be honest, is closing that gap between our high need students and our all students too. So it goes a lot towards, there's a lot of talk about the tier 1 instruction. We've been talking about that for years, the strategies. But we also have to talk about the interventions to put in place because the high need students are the students that might need a tier 3 intervention. They might need some different things. Our special education students are also in there as well. So we have to look at if our special education classes, if the goals and objectives are aligned to our curriculum and the grade level as well, because that's where the scores come out. If that makes sense.
No, it does. That does
Yeah.
make sense. And actually, I just thought as you were speaking of it, and this is kind of a silly question, right? So we have all students that include all students, but then they pull out the high need students. So is there any way, like, or I guess you could do the math to figure out what all the students that are not high
Yes.
needs, where they would fall to actually see the real gap? Not
Yes.
just,
Yes, I can do that. I do that in EdSite Secure has that filter where it could be non-high needs or high needs.
When you're talking about closing the gap, when you're looking at all students in high
Yes.
needs, you're not seeing the real gap.
No,
because- Yeah,
but
okay.
yes.
So you're,
Yep. Yes, yes. Yes, we can absolutely do that. And I look at that because, like you said, that's not the real gap.
All right, appreciate it.
I would have to add to sorry, I'd have to add to it that there's also that other offset where there are students that are overperforming compared to other ones, and how do you raise that average?
Exactly.
Not just by, breaking off the high needs, but also break off the low needs, and what is our real average?
Yep. Yes, there's a lot of different ways, honestly, to look at data.
Right.
So that's the piece. So I brought you the way the state presents it, because that's publicly how it's out there. But yes, when we look at it, I look at it by school. I look at it by sometimes by, like, the principals look at it by teacher. We're breaking it down in a lot of different ways. So I look at it, I also look at performance level. This is how they did this is like the scale scores, but I look at the percentage of students that met or exceeded the benchmark and those that did not as well. So there's just many different ways to look at this. So
I just want to make a comment about high needs, because I think it's really important that we are clear on this. Just because a student might fit the category of high needs doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to score lower.
No.
So I think that's actually a misconception, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the gap is going to be wider. There's students who are multilingual learners who score very well on assessments. So the category of high needs is actually just a subset of student populations, doesn't necessarily mean that their score is going to be low because they are in that category. So the state makes that term. I hate the term because I think it gives a negative connotation when you talk about a student as high needs. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to score low.
It's super misleading.
And to that end, just like I can break out the non-high need students, I can also break out the different categories that make up high needs and look at those individual as well. Exactly.
And I think that's the other point. I'm thinking of a data presentation. So I think it's also important for us to remember this is state assessments. We do our own assessments
Yes, we
using
do.
our, tied to our curriculum. And actually, I would say that data to me is way more telling than the state data. And I know in curriculum we talk about that. And I would be interested to see kind of how does our district assessments kind of mirror or not mirror what we're seeing in state assessments. And then what I recall from one of our presentations around our own district assessments, there isn't a huge discrepancy between the achievement of our high need students and the achievement of our non-high need student category. So I just want to clarify those pieces. The other thing that I think is important is that, like, yes, we compare ourselves to a state average, but I'll be honest, that's another like arbitrary data point. It's an average. And I think assessing our own growth targets, making gains, and looking at what structures of support we're putting in is way more meaningful than comparing to some arbitrary state data average.
Agreed. However, I will say in past, whenever I brought something just with our scores, I was asked how we compared to the state. So I don't do that anymore. I answer that question up front. So take it for what that's worth.
So one last follow-up, because this just reminded me too. So I know we're sneak peek talking about like school performance plans, district performance plans, or our focus is because we do offer separate district assessments. Are we going to look kind of at that whole picture, or is it going to be more focused on kind of the accountability index or for the improvement plan? And I know this might be more for the superintendent, or is it going to be more wide range as kind of things we're trying to tackle?
I think for the academic pieces, like the performance and growth, the math, the ELA, I think that is better based, my personal opinion is that it's better based off of work that we're doing, like not the state assessments. They usually will put the intermediates and JFK will usually put a growth target for that too, like a target to achieve, like we were here, we want to grow this many points. But it's always accompanied by something that we do in district, that we give 3 times a year, that we look at regularly, that we assess the data, that we move kids, whether it's in and out of intervention or what, that we always look at that as well.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense, because I know like one of the tests you're
This is
saying like
a-
it's only
yeah.
offered in grades like whatever 5, 8, and 11.
Exactly.
But if you offer an assessment at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, you're going to see more tangible, you know, who improved, how do they improve. Then, like you said, if you drill down by
Exactly.
grade, school, staff member, you know,
Yes.
classrooms, that makes more sense.
This is a one-time data point for those schools. We have assessments that we look at 3 times a year.
Okay,
Yep.
awesome. Good to know, and I look forward to when we get those plans going too.
Anybody else? Nice work. All right, Ms. Middleton, thank you very
you.
much for the presentation. It was awesome.
I'm going to turn this off.
Okay, so up next is superintendent's report.
Okay, we have, we'll start off with the student reps.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We got spring break coming up, so we got about 2 months to start kind of winding down. Our Lamplighters just did and finished up their spring musical, Cinderella. It was so good. Katie did such a good job as Cinderella, so shout out to her. We also just finished our SATs, and this week, Thursday, they're doing SAT makeups. We also, for seniors, our cap and gown fee deadline is May 1st, so if you guys know a senior or have a senior, let them know to get it in by May 1st. We also have a class individual and family, which is a Yukon course, is taking a field trip to Yukon. So that's exciting for them. We also have 2 students that are participating in the art exhibit, which is going to be at Pearl Street Library tomorrow from 5:30 to 7:30. Maddie Garthwaite and Kyrie Post will both be there showing off their art. So if you guys can show up to support them, that would be great. We also have report card grades are due in Power School today, so you'll be getting your report cards released sometime this week, so keep an eye out for your Outlook. We also have our senior assembly tomorrow, going over all of our last kind of senior activities for the next 2 months. It's going to be from 9:45 to 10:30, but I do believe that Mr. Murray sent out all the seniors a packet earlier today, so if you guys could take a look at that, that would be great, and that's all I have.
Good evening, everyone. This Thursday, there will be a junior planning night for upcoming seniors who can learn about different pathways that they can take after high school. There will be a class of 2025 bingo night tomorrow night in the Enfield High cafeteria from 6 to 8 o'clock. So please show up if you can, support them. Junior prom went well. There was a lot of great feedback from students. Honors Choir performed at the Senior Center this morning. I haven't heard back from them, but I hope everything went well for them. The Enfield High Band will be performing at the Springfield Thunderbirds game on Friday. Good luck to them.
Oh, cool.
4 students were selected for the All-State Choir: Alabama Mattoon, Emily Grenier, Katie Kamei, and Sadie Minalga. So congratulations to them. I heard they had a great time. There's a car show on May 9th, the Cardo Car Show, from 8 o'clock p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. in honor of Dave Carteropoli, a former teacher at Enfield High who had passed away last year. So I don't have a lot of info on that, but I know there's some posters around the school. And finally, there will be the art festival from April 25th to the 26th, I believe. Yes, will be the art festival. So, yeah, that is what I have for tonight.
I'm sorry, Olivia. Regarding the car show, you didn't have a location yet?
I don't.
And what were the dates and times again?
It will be on May 9th from 8 to 9 p.m.
Okay.
We believe it's at the high school over here. And by we, I mean Mr. Longy.
Okay, thanks.
High school? So does it, Ms. Griffin. High school it is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All set, Liv? All right. I have an extended report this evening. So I've got a number of different items, a number of different reminders, some date time announcements, and the latest and greatest coming out of the state. And a clarification I want to try to provide to everybody. So first of all, you already heard about April Vacation Week. As we were walking through the building today, I can tell you how many days are left because it's clearly identified on every board. But 3 days left until April Vacation Week. Reminder for everybody that the Enfield Food Shelf, Enfield Loaves and Fishes, and Allied Services does provide free lunches for students during April break. I believe I actually saw a Parent Square notice go out from Dr. Wiley today as well. In your packet is a flyer with additional information. And I do hope everybody has an enjoyable week. I can tell you the flavor of the schools we are ready for April vacation. JFK open house for incoming students. They're going to hold an open house event for current grade 5 students on Tuesday, April 22nd. The event does start in the auditorium and it will be at 5:30. Arts Festival, I believe we just heard about, but 59th Annual Arts Festival on Friday, April 25th and Saturday, April 26th. There is a packet in your flyer with additional information, as well as a quorum agenda in the event that more than the quorum is present there. The Board of Education special meeting that we have scheduled. The board is going to be holding a special meeting on Tuesday, April 29th, just before your regular meeting. It's going to be downstairs. It'll be in the Skidco room downstairs. And that's part of Head Start's governing body training that you need to undergo. And just as a reminder for everybody, every time we have a change of the board, this is something that should be occurring. So following the next election, we're going to do it all over again as part of the Head Start. Training session, that's all, I think all you need for that one. I received notice just before coming here that the public hearing has been scheduled for the town budget, and that's going to be scheduled for Monday, April 28th. That's at 7 p.m., and it's here in the council chambers. I did want to give a little bit of an update. Like I said, April vacation we're ready for it. March saw a good size uptick in what student behaviors we were seeing. As many of you know, we send out the special notices and updates for things of that nature. I will say, throughout the school year, the staff has done a phenomenal job, especially coming off of everything that occurred last spring, the budget reductions and whatnot, the loss of staff members. There's a lot less staff in some of the buildings. They've done a phenomenal job to date, but I think what we're seeing here is sort of the signs of it catching up with us. So this April break could not happen at a better time. I would say you probably saw the most out of JFK specifically, but that administration is targeting the population. They started with 6th grade alone. Now they have scheduled assemblies ready to go for this week. They'll be reinforcing their expectations across the board related to what student behavior should be, and more importantly, sort of the overall power and impact that your words can have on not just yourself, but the person next to you and the whole school body. Because, as you know, we have procedures that we have in place. A secure school isn't necessarily about an outside threat. Sometimes it's utilized for medical emergencies, privacy matters, and things of that nature. But every time we call that, in my opinion, we have an increased level of anxiety that's happening for kids. They're going to reteach the expectations, and hopefully that's going to go a long way in terms of that. Again, just before this meeting, the State Department of Education has finally provided me some notification regarding the U.S. Department of Education's April 3rd request to all state departments related to the need to certify compliance with Title VI. As you know, there was a message that was sent out from the U.S. Department of Education related to that. The Education Department communication, the Education Department, the U.S. Department of Education, has sent out another notice which has extended the deadline for us to be able to complete this, for the State Department to complete this. So they've pushed it back to April 24th. The State Department reports that they are formulating their response in terms of what that would be. I'm yet to know. I can tell you I do have a meeting on Friday with all of the other superintendents and the commissioner. So hopefully I'll be hearing more about that then. But there has been some additional information and clarification that has been sent related to the previous Office of Civil Rights Title VI Dear Colleague letter that was sent out. So more information to come, but all I can tell you right now is that the U.S. Department of Education has pushed it back just a little bit. The last item I have thought long and hard about, and I've done a lot of research on, and I've spent a lot of time on it, and I want to make sure I go slow and hit all my points on this. And that is about the different types of political activities that have we've heard about and have been discussed within the town back and forth. And really, I want to start by political climate, there's always going to be differences of opinion. Always. Especially when it comes to specific hot topic items, there's always going to be a difference of opinion. And honestly, what I can tell you is what I see is that that difference in opinion has grown. And I think we see evidence of that across the nation. I think we see evidence of that across the state. And I think, you can even, obviously, clearly, we can see evidence of that right here in Enfield. So one of the bigger topics that we've had that it's presented itself to at least this board and to the town council over the last month has been specifically related to sort of different flags and whether they should or should not be hung in classrooms. Now that's a singular topic in my mind. But it's elicited clearly very strong opinions from both sides. And it's not my position to tell you whether your position is correct or incorrect. But it's our position that we should respect everybody's opinions and their perspectives. Now, from the school standpoint, I think we will always maintain that your individual position is your personal position. And we're not to influence your personal position. You actually have board policy on that. Now, the most important thing, and the reason I took so long to look at this, and I honestly, this is why I do what I do, is because no matter what the decision is or no matter what the policy is, the most important thing we do on an everyday basis is to make sure that every single kid feels welcomed in our schools, feels safe in our schools, feels respected in our schools. And every single kid has to have a sense of belonging. And for many of our kids, the safest place they go every single day is our schools. So that's going to always be, in my eyes, the most important thing we do. Now, when I view this topic, this matter, on a more holistic lens, it really comes down to how do the schools handle political activities and how do we present to our kids controversial issues, because that's an important piece. Now, Andy, what has it been, 6 months? I think we took 6.5 months that I've been in the district. So, as I said, I thought it was incredibly pertinent as this topic came up and people were asking for decisions on it, that I did not rush to a decision or that I did not rush to an opinion. So I took a lot of time and I tried to understand the history that has occurred here in Enfield, past communications that have happened, what has occurred from my predecessor and what has been told to the administrative team. I took the time to literally look in every single classroom, to go around and see how welcoming are our classrooms. What are we really talking about in our classrooms? And then I spent a lot of time reviewing Board of Ed policies because, as our policy committee knows, we have a lot of them. And then, because I am no legal expert, yes, I did review with legal opinion. So here's where I think we start. First of all, we have to recognize at all times, freedom of speech is protected. It's protected under the First Amendment of the United States. It's protected under Article 1, Section 4 of the Connecticut Constitution. People have the right to their speech. When you look at it from school standpoint, there's a couple of major precedents I think we have to keep in mind. There was a case called Tinker versus Des Moines Independent Community School District, and that basically just reminds us that students and teachers don't shed their individual rights to speech when they walk into the schoolhouse gates, if you will. But there's also another one that says Giles versus Marino. It's a Second Circuit case that came out in 2006, which basically upheld the school's right it upheld people's right to expression, but it also stated that schools have a right to place restrictions to preserve a focus on, and these are the key words, a neutral learning environment. You have 4 Board of Education policies that if anybody's listening in or wants to go read, there's policies and there's administrative regulations. First is 1311.1. It's political activities of school employees. There's 1311.2. It's political activities in the schools. 3516.15 is about outside items in classrooms and offices. And 6144 is how we present controversial issues. Those are 4 extremely pertinent policies regarding this matter. Now, what I want to put a major asterisk on, because I said I went through and looked at every classroom, this is not the matter that was brought to the board, to the council, back and forth. This is not a pervasive issue in the district. It's just not. I didn't see it. I literally finished walking the high school today. Over 100 classrooms, right? Over 100? Maybe 2 or 3 things that need to be addressed. This is not a pervasive issue, but when we look at it, when we had conversation about it, it was just conversation in the past. People had nothing to base anything off of. So after all of this, what I will tell you is the stance really needs to be that our activities, our discussions, and our materials that we utilize from the Board of Education should advocate, and materials that advocate, I'm going to start that all over again. I just butchered the whole thing I wanted to say.
Redo.
Our activities, our discussions, and our materials that advocate for a sole single political organization's position should not be in our schools. Those items must directly relate to subject-specific curriculum and instruction. Now, what subjects are you talking about? Clearly, a lot of this is about history, it's about civics, it's about political science, and things of that nature. You may see items such as what was brought to you in the schools. If it is part of an instructional program and curriculum, and I emphasize this with all the teachers, used very sensitively, because you have to allow the kids within their program of study to develop the skills to examine the materials, both sides, not just one side, to analyze it, to evaluate it, and then to eventually synthesize their own being regarding it. So materials that recognize and act as symbols that foster a sense of belonging, respect, acceptance, tolerance, and tolerance of differing viewpoints are consistent. Those to me are the things that are consistent with the mission and the vision of what we do here. I saw much of that as we went around the schools. I saw warm, welcoming classrooms. I saw overly filled classrooms as well, but I saw warm, welcoming classrooms. Those acts and those symbols, those are about saying, you are safe here, you belong here, we respect you here, and you can come in and just do school. There is nothing wrong with that. It is not politically motivated. It's not coming from a political organization. What I will do next is work to try to finalize a memorandum of sorts that is sent to the administration so that we don't go through this again. You folks have gone through this before. You likely, some of you on the board, clearly remember this conversation. And as we had the conversations, they were just conversations. I know the administrators remember the conversations. So the administrative memorandum will be just to remind and memorialize the fact that we've had this conversation again. God forbid something happens to me in the future or something happens to anybody in the future, you now have something to base decisions off of in the future. With all of that being said, I want to get to the most important thing here. The amount of time that's been spent reviewing this matter took away from the true work that needs to happen. The true work across the district in every school, and unfortunately, where you need help from kids. So the true work needs to be the adults working with the kids, and from my standpoint as a superintendent, leaning in on my student reps and working with them so that we can help get to more kids, because you have access to the student leaders in your buildings. We need to be listening to them. We need to be talking to them. We need to be working with them so that the administrators, the staff, and everybody that's involved hears us loud and clear and knows that we're concerned about them and we want to make sure that you have the support you need and that you deserve, really. That's the work that needs to be occurring. And I firmly believe it is not about, a single thing that's hanging or a single thing that's showing or a symbol that helps to that sense of belonging, but the true work is getting to them and finding the supports that they need. So that's where we need to be going. And that's really the emphasis I would place on all of this. So just sort of moving forward, I want to sort of just wrap this up for you. So again, so we don't have to go through this again. I provided to you those 4 policies that we will base that administrative regulation off of. So things that are attached to singular polarizing political organizations and pieces will not be, actually per your policy, they're not permitted in the buildings. So I would put that back to the policy. If that's something that wishes to be looked at in the future, the policy committee is more than welcome to look at that. We can go through that all the time. But as of where we stand right now, you have policies in place that do not allow it. Freedom of speech is an incredibly difficult topic to grasp and to grab your arms around. Because again, per the pieces that I mentioned, you don't just shed your rights when you walk into the buildings. But it's about the kids, and it's about us getting the information to the kids so that they can form their own opinions. Our opinions get left at the door. I'll end with that. I would anticipate in the next day or so, I'll try to finalize that memorandum and push it out to the administrators. I can share it through the board chair and whatnot if you wish to see it before, but happy to answer any questions related to that. That would end my very long-winded EPS update.
Thank you, Mr. Macchio. Okay. We are moving on to audiences. So we've got one. We've got Maureen Griffin. Maureen knows the drill. 4 minutes.
Maureen Griffin, Abbey Road, Mom. I had to laugh at Ms. Middleton when she said the scores might go down because of the streamlined supports. I would say kneecapped supports. Which you were just speaking of, Mr. Macchio. I would also argue that it is not just civics. It is not just the ones you mentioned. It's also science classes, genetics, biology.
Oh, yeah. Solely examples.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because Yeah, don't limit yourself. And were you in my head when I was sitting out in the car writing this? Because you're going to be like, oh, I just talked about that. But I'm still going to say it all. Okay?
Maureen, I had no doubt in my mind that you were going to still say it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. In thinking about what I want to say tonight, there were many subjects that ran through my mind. The one that kept resurfacing is how unsettling current events are. I'm pushing 60, so yeah, the stock market cratering is scary. But what I find most disturbing is the dehumanizing rhetoric at every level of government and wider society. What are we teaching our kids? Empathy is a glitch, a negative? I say no. Empathy is humanity's superpower. It enables one to appreciate and connect with others. Empathy is the antidote to dehumanization. Only the weak will lose? Society's most shining moments arise from enabling the weak to reach their greatest potential. We have to actively counter these things, especially for the kids that are part of the groups being dehumanized. They need to know that we see, value, and support them. Thank you for knowing that. Make sure you back it up, okay? Thank you. Okay, this leads me to touch upon the mental health of our kids. A mom speaking at last night's town council meeting mentioned numerous secure the school drills. Am I correct in thinking that these are done to safeguard privacy during medical or behavioral or mental health crises? I believe I am, and I think you said that. Are the numbers of 211 calls for distressed students rising? Yes, seems to be. What are we doing to address this? To me, this is indicative of the need for more adults in our buildings, especially those with behavioral and mental health intervention training. Obviously, the kids are floundering, the staff is struggling. Lastly, a plea to those at home that want more support for education in town. Budget presentation and deliberation time is upon us. The town council needs to hear from you. Speaking at the meetings is ideal because it is harder for those that are not in support of a realistic budget to deny that the support is strong. If you can't speak at meetings, please email the town council members. They need to hear. Thank you.
Good Maureen. All right, board member comments. Who would like to go first? Mr. Coburn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll be brief tonight. Just want to wish our students and staff a enjoyable April break coming up. As was mentioned, I think that's going to be well-deserved and a good break from the classroom rigor. I also wanted to mention Easter's coming up, so wishing everyone a happy and healthy Easter. Also, I was looking up in April. There's a lot of different things celebrated in the month of April. One of the ones I thought was interesting, it's National Financial Literacy Month. And it seems like just an important thing to kind of give a shout out to, and places the importance of learning about finances and tools, and could be stuff that could be incorporated into the classroom and teach children how to make smart decisions about their financial future. I do want to continue my trend of throwing in quotes into the meetings. So there's a quote from Epictetus, who was a Roman slave turned philosopher, and the quote goes, "Only the educated are free." So I figure that's very appropriate. I do, like superintendent, kind of just want to hit on a couple different things just for the sake of putting them on the public record. So within the last few weeks, I feel like the board's got an uptick in just communication from parents and staff members. And I do just want to put out there that we are receptive, we're responsive, we will read your emails and we'll look at them. However, we're generally not the first line of who you want to reach out to. We always want to see these things kind of handled at the lowest level. So if it's a issue with a coach or a teacher, obviously bring it to them, bring it up to your school administrators, work it through the superintendent before you come to us. If there's something that has escalated through that due process and you're still having concerns, by all means, reach out to the board, come to a meeting. Just, keep in mind these conversations become public at that point, if you're here in a meeting or something. So we do encourage you, generally our chairperson will respond. We'll forward things over to the superintendent, and it still will get handled, but we do just kind of, like in the military, there's that chain of command that we encourage. Also do want to talk about some of the emails, and obviously some of the community discourse that's been coming up is about the increase in student behaviors and the related incidents. And I do just want to reaffirm the public, the board is aware. we are monitoring these, and we are, reviewing various policies, procedures, resources, and at least our role in the oversight piece of that. And I want to end with thanking the superintendent for his continued weekly updates, and even just tonight, his thorough explanation on his political activities, background research, the time he put into that. Again, that's time taken away from other tasks, but it's, something when there is these questions and things coming up, we're doing the right thing to address it and putting the facts out there. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cover. Who'd like to go next? Oh. Go ahead, Mr. Rucker.
Okay. So we do have super positive news. Excuse me. Not only is April break in a couple of days, but when we return from April break, we only have 39 school days left. That's 8 weeks of school. 7 of those 8 weeks are a full Monday through Friday. Sorry,
Did you
ladies.
say 39 days?
39 school days.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
So we have 8 weeks left. Like I said, 7 of those weeks have 5 days, 1 has 4. There's a early release here and there, but the school year is rapidly concluding, and I just wanted to take a moment to remind people that there's a lot going on. There's Safe Grad fundraisers going on. There's a lot of PTO fundraisers going on. There's field trips coming up. There's things that our administrators and our teachers are planning for our students. There's just a lot of ways for parents to volunteer, to be seen, to help out in our schools, whether it's a year-end celebration or some field day opportunities to come up for the younger kids, for you to volunteer, hopefully be able to take a morning off and come spend the day with the kids. Again, however old you think they are now, they're already juniors, they're already seniors. In 39 days, they're moving up another level. So let's appreciate and enjoy the current school year while it's still here. It is, I know it's not ending soon enough for some of us, but it is, and some of us, I mean our students and staff, but there is a lot to celebrate, and there's a lot of ways that you can help and volunteer. Reach out to your classroom teacher at the younger levels or your administrator at the older levels, see if there's anything you can do to help, and we'd appreciate seeing you in our buildings. Since we met last, a couple of us attended a Welcome to Kindergarten event. It was like an opening orientation. There'll be more of these events as we get closer to the next school year, but it was a chance for us to get a chance to meet all of our incoming kindergarten parents and some kindergarten students that were in attendance at JFK last week. So for anybody that wasn't there, please check out the KITE website for information. The presentation that was given last week has been posted. There's a video of it, so if you weren't able to attend, you can still watch it. You can reach out to the Enfield Schools, enfieldschools.org. Our website has all the how do I register for the fall. Again, if you already attend one of our programs at Stowe, your process is easier, but if you're not, please reach out, or you can also reach out to us through the Town of Enfield's website, through the Enfield School Board's website. You can reach out to any of the 9 of us. We can point you in the right direction, anything we can do to help. But one thing I wanted to mention that was said that day, in case you weren't not there, on August 22nd, which we know is towards the end of summer, and you may have a vacation day planned, et cetera, but if you are going to be one of our incoming kindergarten students and families on August 22nd in the morning, there's going to be an orientation at Henry Barnard School. There's going to be one at Enfield Street School, and there's going to be one at Hazardville Memorial School. So you can reach out to the schools for times. There'll be some more information coming, but I just wanted to put that plug in your ear for August 22nd in the morning. I believe some schools are at 9, some are at 10, so I don't want to give you the times, just the date for now. Also, one quick reminder on town events going on. We have the Enfield Townwide Tag Sale. So that, again, is on Saturday, May 17th, rain or shine, from 9 to 3. You can still register. 100% of the proceeds raised goes to the Enfield Food Shelf. The Enfield Food Shelf and Loaves and Fishes both get a lot of donations around the holidays, and sometimes aren't always thought of first in mind when it comes to May, June, July, August. But that's actually when they can be their busiest, because there are school breaks, because there are, 2 months in the summer where we're not going to school, and a lot of our students, we know that they're getting perhaps, if not their only meal of the day, one of their better meals of the day in our schools. And we want to make sure that we support things like the Enfield Food Shelf and Enfield Loaves and Fishes. If you would like to register, there's a Facebook page, Enfield Townwide Tag Sale. There's an Instagram page, Enfield Townwide Tag Sale. Or you can go to enfieldpto.com/ETWTS, which is Enfield Townwide Tag Sale, to sign up. You can sign up between now and April 26th. So when we see you guys again, that may have come and gone by then. So I just wanted to mention that. And speaking of fundraisers, my daughter, who knows our school reps and is in the same class as Olivia to my left, she just sent me a text the other day. Dad, Olivia's playing lacrosse. Here's a fundraiser link. No question marks. But of course, I just jumped in, and so I reached out to. So now I'm just waiting for my Jersey Mike Subs VIP pack. But I was happy to make a donation to the lacrosse team. So good luck this season. And that's all I have for this week, and except for our school reports, which we'll get to later. Thank you.
I think you've just upset somebody.
Are you lacrossing too?
Yes, so if you guys would like to buy from me, because it's a competition, get my name, I'll send you the link. Click me.
Can you send us?
Well,
I'll
you
do
know.
it right now.
Well, I did what I was told by my daughter, who's the boss in the house, and she gave me Olivia's link first. So, but
She's typing.
I am happy to support more than one lacrosse player. But there's a lot of ways that all of us can help. And with spring sports coming up and the weather getting nicer, like I said, please take the time, take the advantage to volunteer in your kids' schools over the next 8 weeks, 39 days, et cetera, post-break. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Ms. Pickett.
A couple things for tonight. One is I saw Eli Whitney is having a principals advisory meeting, and I know that'll probably come up in the school updates.
Yes, when I talk about Eli Whitney in my school updates.
I'm bringing it up now. As a parent, I think this is an opportunity for us to think about how we do maximize our family engagement structures. I think that's a really neat opportunity at Eli Whitney. And as we are reimagining our schools, as we're looking at our district improvement plan, thinking about ways of how we are partnering with our families. I know our previous superintendent did a small superintendent advisory. I think really thinking about those structures of how we get input from families and students is really important. Steve, I want to thank you and the leadership team. You've been very patient with me. I've been asking a lot of questions, you too, Charlotte, around safety and behavior. And similar to what Phil has mentioned, we're paying attention to that. I've made many public statements about my concerns. I believe that partnership and clear expectations are really critical. So I think it's important the work that JFK in particular is doing. But I do think it's a need of our district to really think about our behavior response structure. I'm going to remind the public that we need support of our budget. So we heard April 28th is the public hearing. Staffing is critical to our behavior response structure. We need our ask, our budget ask. Currently, we just truly have minimal options and supports available to us for behavior. I do want to take a moment just to share my own personal journey as a parent in Enfield Public Schools. My son entered kindergarten during the 2020-2021 school year. When he entered Enfield Street School, we had a principal, assistant principal, and a PBIS coach who truly helped the Tier 1 school climate environment, set clear behavior expectations, taught lessons to students, visited classrooms, and provided additional supports to staff and students who might need them. We had a transition room where students who had behavioral struggles could go, get some supports, and transition back to their classroom. We had regular social workers, school counselors, and a partnership with a school-based health center. Later on during COVID, we did add a security position that offered some additional physical security to the building. Now, 4 years later, there's no transition room, there's no PBIS coach, we have intermittent behavioral health support. The reality at Enfield Street School, we've struggled with keeping consistent social work support and school counselor support. We have an armed security guard whose role is not to intervene on student behavior. I think it's important for us when we think about the data that was presented tonight and we think about other data that's not part of our accountability index, but we get reported on suspensions, expulsions, 911 calls, lockdown drills. All of that data tells a much fuller story. It's concerning to me, the trajectory of our level of supports and what's happening with student behavior. I think we need to be having a real conversation about what our student needs are and the supports and structures we're providing to support those needs. We need to be evaluating what our behavior response structure is and how we maximize prevention and early intervention. I also am struggling a bit with the ending comment, Steve, that you had around political activities, and I just want to name it. Truly, I believe this conversation's around a Black Lives Matter flag. It's frustrating to me that there are town council members who are using their power and position to intimidate and waste time. They're also not the experts in teaching and learning. They have no idea the efforts that our staff take to build relationships and cultivate a community for our students. I'm frustrated that the real work of school is being sidelined. And I'm going to agree with you, Steve. Our work is to ensure that students feel welcomed, affirmed, safe, respected, and have a sense of belonging. And I trust our teachers in knowing how to do that. I'm going to remind folks again, April 28th is a town council public hearing on our budget. We need your support.
Thank you, Ms. Pickett. Anybody else like to go? No? Okay, so I just wanted to give a couple of things. So piggybacking off of Mr. Ryder, the Welcome to Kindergarten night was actually way more well attended than it was last year, so that's a promising thing. That's great to see more families coming in with their kids, and it was a good night. Yesterday, because yesterday was Monday, I was on a call with Jackie Valley and Manchester Public Schools, their board chair and their director, for the Head Start federal review. I was in on the program governance discussion, just highlighted like all of the things that Jackie brings to us and like their newsletters and how she tells us what's happening with Head Start kids and all that. So it was a good call. There was multiple different sections of different calls. I think Mr. Longy was on the section after mine. It was good. It went well, so that's a good thing. And then I just wanted to give a shout out and thank Ms. Kay and Mr. LeBlanc over at Prudence Crandall. Thank you for giving your time and providing the students there with an after-school intramural sports program for the past 6 Mondays, I believe. I thought that was really great that they went out of the way and did that. So I just wanted to say thanks to them. Anybody else? Nope? Okay. Moving along. Unfinished business. Policy revisions, second reading. Ms. Cushman, can we go over 5118.1, homeless children and youth?
Policy 5118.1, homeless children and youth. Though much more succinct than our current policy, as mentioned before, this new policy that we've proposed from Shipman aligns our district with federal and state law by directing our administration to establish the regulations regarding homeless children and youth. The essential information is now provided within the detailed administrative regulations, which clearly define key terms and address the role of the homeless liaison, as well as other essential elements such as enrollment, school selection, the process for dispute resolution, special services, and transportation. Please note that while the current policy number is being maintained, the title and text of this proposed policy, if passed, will fully replace our current one. I would like to make a motion to approve the second reading of Policy 5118.1, Homeless Children and Youth.
Motion made by Ms. Cushman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kober. Any discussion? Ms. Pickett.
I'm just going to remain that I get that we're going to have very in-depth admin regs. I hope that those are posted alongside our policy. And I continue to just struggle with the last line around state or federal policy. But thank you for your work on this.
Anybody else? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Pickett?
No.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mrs. Acree?
Yes.
Dr. Calnan?
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Mr. Gauss?
Yes.
Mr. Kober?
Yes.
Chairwoman Riley?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, Ms. Cushman, 5131.6.
Policy 5131.6, drug and alcohol use by students, is a policy from shipment that would be a direct replacement of our current CABE policy, providing more accurate, well-defined terminology and procedures that reflect our current legislation. The language also aligns more closely with policy 5131.61 that was recently passed, the chemical health for student athletes. Again, please note that while the current policy number is being maintained, the title and text of this proposed policy, if passed, will fully replace our current one. I would like to make a motion to approve the second reading of policy 5131.6.
Motion made by Ms. Cushman,
Second?
second by Ms. Acree. Any discussion? Okay, sensing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Pickett?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mrs. Acree?
Yes.
Dr. Calnan?
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Mr. Gauss?
Yes.
Mr. Kober?
Yes.
Chairwoman Riley?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, new business, we don't have any. Board committee reports, curriculum committee, Ms. Acree.
Our next meeting will be April 24th.
Okay. Finance budget committee, Mr. Covert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the Finance and Budget Committee met yesterday. We'll be talking about approval of accounts of payroll later in agenda item 15. Our next meeting will be Monday, May 5th at 5 p.m. And just some of our key discussion points, finance and budget. So we reviewed the current FY25 budget summary. So I'll just read the totals in for the full board. So our original appropriation of $77,429,555. Our actual expenditures and revenue year to date are $56,598,402. Including projected encumbrances, we're looking to end the year at $75,163,856. At this point, this would lead a variance surplus of $2,115,699. We also looked at the current grant report, the FY25 grants. I'll just talk about the applied for, total $3,677,800.50, and our awarded year-to-date is $3,669,829.00. And there are a couple of FY26 grants that are starting, notably Head Start, because their fiscal year starts in March, versus more of the other ones start in July. So we'll start seeing some more of those rolling around in finance and budget. I believe I talked about it last time. I know the superintendent sent out a memo to staff regarding the budget freeze just for new purchase orders, so we could see what was encumbered and remove some of that out, and that resulted in part of the change in the final number for the end of the year. So pending any questions, that's all I have for finance and budget.
Well, we forgot we had a cool discussion with Randy Sabaski from Wolf Financial. That was a good discussion.
Yes,
that
we
had.
did. We did talk about our talented and gifted investment account and kind of where we're at with that and where we want to go. So that was productive as well.
That was good. She had a lot of good information about markets and stuff right now and how the volatility is working or not working. We did lose some money, but we're hoping that when interest rates change, that might help us. So
I guess I'll just add too. So that is and in the finance, we are looking at some of other activity and student accounts, but the talented and gifted accounts is a separate investment, completely independent from our appropriation, just for public awareness.
Yep. Anybody else? No. Okay, and policy committee. Next question.
Our next meeting will be held on Tuesday, April 22nd at 5:30.
Okay, and leadership committee. We met last week on Wednesday. The next meeting is May 7th. We had a very long agenda, but there was a lot to talk about. We reviewed our next few meetings, the Head Start training, superintendent eval, we did budget update, maintenance issues, Stowe, state legislative proposals. Let's see here. We talked about that we have had 88 new students move into the district with IEPs since August. 13 of them were since March. And 41 have left the district, so that's still a net of 47, which is still a rather large number to keep in mind when budget time comes around. And then this is going to overlap with pre-ref, so I won't talk during pre-ref, but Randy Daigle came to leadership, and he is the chairman of the pre-ref committee. And we talked about how he's getting the RFP out, and he wants the board and Mr. Macchio to kind of get prepared for end user focus groups. So once we get underway, John Day gave a suggestion of setting some meetings up in buildings to get input and volunteers for smaller focus groups. He also, said start getting your program requirements together of what they're going to need in the buildings. He also talked about they're exploring like acreage waivers because there's obviously not an unlimited amount of space in Enfield, and we may need waivers to put buildings in existing places. So obviously everything is still on the table, like he says all the time, because we haven't even, got to the meat and potatoes of this all yet. So more to come tomorrow at 5:30 at Henry Barnard is a walkthrough for a pre-ref. And then there's no meeting because we don't have anything yet back, any responses back for the RFP. So those are the two updates together.
Madam Chair, just a quick question, and this leadership maybe overlaps with joint facilities, but I know you mentioned classrooms. So those classrooms that were out of service at Stowe, are those usable again? I know there's no plan to use them for the rest of the year, but just like what does that look like in the building, I guess?
The water is not leaking currently in them. But I don't know what's going to, Mr. Macchio knows.
Still waiting for some of the flooring to be replaced and the ceiling tiles to be replaced.
Okay, so still a work in progress. So
Work in progress,
and
right.
Delaying.
The goal will be to help move OTPT off of the stage area. If you remember when we walked through how cram-packed that was. So it's trying to move it into a different location. And we still have meetings to be put on the books related to integrated pre-K, because as you know in the budget, we have an additional classroom that's needed in terms of space and location and things of that nature.
Yeah, and that's
so
kind
still
of
working through
long-term
that.
strategic, planning for next year. That's kind of what I was getting at. So appreciate the update. Thank you.
Yep. And then this Thursday coming up, we have a joint meeting with town manager, the mayor, the superintendent, myself, and I'm going to hopefully start the conversation on where space needs are for us and space needs like at Stowe and space needs for ECDC, and like how we can work on that for a better solution so we can have all of our students under one roof and they can have all of their programs under one roof. So I don't know what's going to happen, but at least we'll start the conversation, I hope.
Charlotte, I just want to appreciate your work on that, and Steve, you mentioning that. I think it's really important that we have honest conversations and open conversations with our community about our buildings and town use of them and how we get things funded. So it's part of our pre-ref committee to talk about our K-5 buildings, but I think it's also really important that residents realize that we get reimbursement from the state for having educational programming in schools. And Stowe is where our preschool programming is happening. And when we are displacing students to other buildings, it truly interrupts community of a preschool and programming, especially when it's special needs students who are being put in other schools. Who's providing those services? I think the town really needs to be aware that education and our educational programming is a priority, and having secure space for them together is really important.
Okay. All right. So Now we're moving on to liaison reports. Any school reports or updates? Mr. Ryder.
Well, as Mrs. Pickett said earlier, over at Eli Whitney, there's a principal's advisory meeting on Thursday of this week at 4 o'clock, which is an opportunity for all parents and caregivers to share any questions or concerns. You can reach out to Ms. Flanagan or Mr. LaMesa. But again, that's this Thursday, April 10th at 4 o'clock. Just a quick reminder to RSVP for the upcoming bingo night on Thursday, April 24th. On Monday, April 21st is our SBA pep rally to kick off our testing schedules, because they'll be doing their SBAC testing shortly after that. And then we also wanted to take a moment to wish all of our assistant principals a happy Assistant Principals Week this week. So to all of our assistant principals at all of our levels, happy Assistant Principals Week from the school board and Eli Whitney. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Ms. Acree?
For Mr. Dupere at Prudence Crandall, he says, state testing is in full swing. Students in 5th grade worked very hard completing the science portion of the test, and 4th graders will be starting after vacation. We will be unveiling the One Book, One School book title during our Pride Assembly, which at Crandall will be on April 25th. And he just ends with, we are looking forward to a wonderful, relaxing, and safe vacation.
Thank you, Ms. Acree. Mr. Kober?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my usual shout out to Henry Barnard, friends and family. I just want to again reiterate kind of the theme too, the Big Cat newsletter being on Parent Square. So make sure you're getting the emails and or downloading the app. Some of the key events, the math and literacy nights and science nights are now all past us, but looking at the schedule ahead, there's a lot of upcoming school events, particularly in May. One of the big ones is obviously Field Day, and that is confirmed for Thursday, May 29th, with a rain date, if needed, of Monday, June 2nd. Another exciting thing for Henry Barnard is there's a family night on Wednesday, June 4th with Lucky Bob. So that'll be for all grades. That sounds fun. There is Spring Pictures also coming up after spring break. That'll be Thursday, April 24th. So that is all I have at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Callen.
Just a few remarks about Kite. Kite wants to thank Enfield Public Schools, Head Start, and the Enfield Culture and Arts Commission for a great heritage fair. The event saw over 300 people and was truly a remarkable day, celebrating the heritage and diversity of Enfield families. Excuse me. Welcome to Kindergarten Night. You've already heard enough about, I guess, but let me just to reiterate very quickly. Saw over 100 families. If you missed it, Kite is working on getting a recording, and packets will be distributed to the schools, centers, and home providers. Kite, in partnership with Enfield Public Schools, the Enfield Family Resource Center, and the Enfield Public Library, is gearing up for Enfield Unplugged. It will take place this year on May 5th through 9th. Families are encouraged to reduce their screen time, and free events are offered with chances for raffle prizes. More details to come. Finally, it is my sad duty to report that Brianna Beckstrom will be leaving Enfield Kite to pursue opportunities elsewhere. Chris Gameau will be assuming the position of Executive Director until a permanent replacement can be found. Chris was Brianna's predecessor, and she proved herself to be highly capable, especially during the trying days of the COVID pandemic. Brianna will be joining Junior Achievement of Southwest New England. She has been a tireless advocate for Enfield children and families, and we are going to miss her. On a personal note, I found Brianna to be inspiring in her leadership, and it's pretty hard to inspire a crusty 76-year-old man. So we wish her we wish her well in her future pursuits. That's it.
Yeah, way to go, Brianna. But guess what? She's still going to be on First Readers, so you can still see her. Okay, so, I have one for Hazardville Memorial. March 31st through the end of this week was spare change for superheroes. So you're bringing your spare change. It's going to go to the Children's Center. And on this Thursday, wear your superhero gear and bring in some spare change for superheroes at Hazardville Memorial. Anybody else? Mr. Gatt?
Some of my thunder was stolen tonight from both Mr. Kober and Mr. Macchio about securing the schools. Because I'm the liaison for JFK, and that seems to be where things are going down. I just want to reiterate that there is a lot of privacy issues and things when something happens, and it could be something minor. But so don't give in to the rumor mill when schools get closed down. It's just something that can happen. I know when my kid was in school quite a while ago, we had 2 lockdowns in school because there was a bear in the backyard. It could almost be anything. And I just wanted to say that to the parents out there that may not read the newsletters and things. I guess that's it for me for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. Joint Facilities Committee.
We had a meeting scheduled for this Thursday, but I just saw a chirp on my way in that it was canceled.
Yep.
So I assume the next one would be 2 weeks later, but I don't have a date.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an early spring break present. Joint Insurance Committee, we don't have a meeting set up yet, but I've heard that there might be some reports in. We're checking on that from Lockton or Cigna. So if they are in, then hopefully we'll have a meeting to go over them. Joint Security,
This Friday, April 11th, we are meeting.
Enfield Mental Health Committee.
Yes, last Thursday, Dr. Callan and I attended the Parent Leadership Academy class. We were asked by Leslie Lawler to do a presentation on the Mental Health Committee of the board. The topic for this class was community advocacy. Dr. We both gave an overview of what our Mental Health Committee has been doing in the last year. There was also a panel-style discussion with other local presenters, including someone representing special education and one of the social workers that works in our district. The class also got a chance to ask us questions about our programs and to give more information. And Dr. Callanan and Mr. Longy, we're still working on scheduling a meeting because we want to bring in Child First and have them do a presentation for us, the Mental Health Committee, and possibly a presentation for the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Acre. Pre-ref Committee, I just gave that update with leadership. So moving on to 14, approval of minutes. I need a motion to approve the regular Board of Ed meeting minutes from March 25th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Cover, second by Mr. Ryder. Any discussion? Okay. I need a show of hands in approval of the minutes. There is 8 in favor and none against. All right. Approval of accounts and payroll, Mr. Cover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as mentioned during the finance report, we do have accounts and payroll for the month of March. Finance Committee met on April 7th, 2025 to review financial statements for the month of March year-to-date, then examined various documents related to finance. A review concluded there was nothing of significance to report to the board. Motion is, I move we accept the superintendent's certification as follows. Quote, I hereby certify that in the month of March, total expenditures amounted to $8,269,266.34, which is broken down between payroll totaling $4,553,130.39 and all other accounts totaling $3,716,135.95. All payments have been made in accordance with the approved budget and are properly recorded for within the books of accounts. Copies of approvals for check invoices are properly documented. Prepared by Lorena Cisneros, Business Manager.
Motion made by Mr. Cover.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ryder. Any discussion? Sensing none, roll. Show of hands in favor. 8 in favor, none against.
Part 2, moving on to certification of grant and Head Start expenditures. So once again, Finance Committee met April 7th to review the financial statements for grants and Head Start. Motion is, I move we accept the superintendent's certification as follows. Quote, I hereby certify that in the month of March, the total grant and Head Start expenditures amount to $489,038.79, which is broken down between payroll totaling $406,271.69 and other accounts totaling $82,767.10. All payments have been made in accordance with the approved budget and are properly accounted for within the books of accounts. Copies of approval for check invoices are properly documented. End quote. Prepared by Lorena Cesarnos, Business Manager.
Motion made by Mr. Cover.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ryder. Any discussion? Show of hands in favor. 8 in favor, none against.
And there are no line item transfers at this time.
All right. Mr. Ryder, correspondence and communications.
Yes, I'm going to ask for an assist from ETV with the first one. There should be a lunch link.
Yep.
There it is. So you can see the directions here on the screen, but we do want to let everybody know that the lunch link is back for April break. It's a drive-through program to distribute lunches. That will include protein, fruit juice, and snacks beginning on Monday, it's on Monday, April 14th from 11 to 12 at Enfield Loaves and Fishes. At the Food Shelf, 786 Enfield Street, sponsored by Allied Community Services, Enfield Loaves and Fishes, and of course, Enfield Food Shelf. There's a phone number there, and I will get this also up on Enfield PTO so we can share that around. And then I had one more note for our friends at ETV. Where am I? Which camera am I on?
There you go.
Bus Driver Appreciation Day. Oh,
this way.
There we go. All right, so remember the fourth Tuesday of every April. For many, many years now, we've celebrated Bus Driver Appreciation Day. So this year it's going to be Tuesday, April 22nd. The reason why I'm mentioning it now is, of course, because we have April break between now and then. So I wanted to mention it now so everybody can prepare. Do a little something special for the people that take care of getting our students, our children, safely to and from school every day. I am a huge fan of our bus drivers. I try to do something special every year, and I plan on doing the same the morning of Tuesday, April 22nd, so keep an eye out for that. But again, if you could just help us spread the word, that would be great, because again, it's the Tuesday after a long break, so we want to make sure everybody is aware of that. And I look forward to seeing everybody Tuesday, April 22nd. That's all we have for correspondence and communications outside of what has been in our packets and in Parent Square. Download Parent Square.
Thank you, Mr. Herder. EnfieldPTO.com.
Yes, EnfieldPTO.com has all the links.
Yes. There's no need for executive session, so I need a motion.
Madam Chair, I move we adjourn.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Cober.
I'll second Phil again.
Second by Mr. Ryder. Show of hands in favor.
Teamwork.
8 in favor, none against. Have a wonderful spring break.
Mr. Ryder, when is kindergarten orientation again?
August 22nd, between 9 and 11.
That's awesome. That they put that
Freeze Pops.
That's really